And I know a lot of creatives who maybe get into photography because they love it, feel the pressure of performing online and it actually hinders them.
How has photography changed your life?
Shaq will hear about basketball 24 hours a day. Do not go and talk to Shaq about basketball.
What advice would you give someone that wants to pursue photography, videography as a career? This week's episode is brought to you by One Shot. One Shot's for photographers and videographers into sports and street culture. So if this sounds like you, it's time you checked out the online community. The One Shot online community features regular challenges, networking opportunities, giveaways, online education from myself to help you frame your dream. And guess what? It's free. So you can be located anywhere in the world and you can join this community. All you got to do is click the link in the description below and I'll catch you in there. So guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rush. We're coming to you from Melbourne, Australia, and I've got a special guest on today's show, my man, Josh Scott, AKA the Sea Wolf.
Dude, what an intro.
But I've got to say, man, the intro goes for a little bit longer because you've worked with the likes of, I've got a list here. This is how many names are on this list. You've worked with Shaq, Tom Brady, Kobe Bryant, Jon Jones, Jason Tatum, A$AP Rocky, Tiger, Michael Jackson, Jesus, Elvis, just to name a few.
I was like, where do we draw the line there? No one's going to know which ones are real and fake now.
But man, like your portfolio is, I was looking at your website yesterday and it is insane.
Thank you, bro.
Have you had a moment to kind of sit back and pinch yourself and be like, oh my God, like this is the dream that I always wanted?
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting working in this industry because you have to have moments like that all the time to keep you going. I know that at least once every tour that I go on, I go, I'm actually here. I know that like with Kobe, the moment, you were there for this one actually, the moment that we both walked out with him, and there's a video you're always putting up, but what people don't realize is like, I was on the other side of that filming as well, but I'm like 5'1", not really, but I'm pretty short. So I was kind of shooting over everyone's shoulders and I was like, we're actually here doing this. You know what I mean? Like that's when it all kind of reins in and you're like, this is a sick job, you know, like a lot of hard work goes to get there, but once you're there, it's like, it's a moment, you know? So
I think it's the best job in the world. And
yeah.
This is what I want to touch on today is that you've been in the game for 13 years.
Too old. You can tell by my hairline, 13 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, please comment happy birthday for Josh. It was his birthday yesterday. So as a gift, I thought, hey, let's get him on the show.
Thank you, man.
So thanks for coming in and happy birthday.
Thank you, brother. You're a champion.
25 looks good.
25.
So look, 13 years in the game. Take me back to that moment that you decided, I want to make photography, videography as a career.
Yeah, well, look, I started a long time ago. My friends had a little rap group. I wouldn't say little, there was about 6 of them in it. And I couldn't do music to save my life. And I was like, I really want to be part of it with the boys because the boys are getting in the studio, doing cool stuff, having a lot of fun. The one thing I was good at back then was Photoshop. I used to make little flyers for like movies and they change the face and stuff, like just for fun, you know, before the day of like, you know, meme base and all these meme pages. So then I was like, oh, I'll just buy a camera so I can take photos of my friends making music. And it's kind of how it started, you know, the group was called The Outside In, you know, they were this little collective. And then I kind of snuck in with my camera and captured all their little shows and, you know, them in the studio and day-to-day stuff. And yeah, it kind of grew from there. And I think the moment I was doing welding at the time. Yeah, so I was like a bit of a tradie. And then I remember welding and taking photos and I had the opportunity to take photos of Coolio at a nightclub.
Oh, no way.
And I had to choose between doing that or working. And I quit my job. I was like, I'm just going to go take photos of Coolio. And then when I took photos for Coolio doing a nightclub performance, I was like, that's it. That's the peak of my career. Nothing will top that. I've made it. You know what I mean?
But I didn't put Coolio in the list.
Coolio, dude. Yeah. So Coolio was my first ever like artist. And it just rolled on from there. And then started shooting shows. I shot my first show when you were there as well, The Game. Like I think a lot of my career is just kind of started with that. And then my passion kind of grew for photography from there. So yeah.
I'm pleased you brought that up because this is one thing I love touching on is having a camera in your hand, the opportunities that it can bring you and the doors of opportunity that open for you. And I mean, you're obviously a true testament of that with all these big people that you've worked with. But how has photography changed your life?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me, I had a bit of a thing where I was like, what's my actual passion, right? Because my portfolio is very diverse in the sense of what I shoot. Like I've shot a lot of sports, music, a lot of travel, a lot of products, a lot of everything. But the correlating thing in the middle there is capturing moments. And I think for me, it's really helped me kind of, I love being around people, which is why I love shooting for people, sports people, intellectuals, scientists, everything like that. I love being around nature. I love being in that. But photography's kind of brought that to be a focus in my life rather than something I do for fun. Really doubling down on, I guess, the stuff that I love and finding a way to capture it and bring it to people how I see it, And it does take time. We don't always succeed. Sometimes there's been times where I've taken photos. I go, I'm so bad at this. I quit. Not quit. I've never quit, which is why I'm still here. But it's like you can feel down, but it's really kind of brought the things that I love into my life,
And so over that 13-year period, has it been full-time that entire 13 years or has it kind of been in and out, dabbling?
I mean, I think you'll know this as well. Any creative is that a lot of things come in waves, and a lot of success comes in waves, especially with the content era, For me, I was full-time for a long time. When I first started, I was mainly just shooting events. And then that slowed down. I was a barista, so then I made a lot of coffee for years. So I can make a mean coffee now.
What can't this man not do?
Just photos and coffee, man. That's like the Brunswick dream. So, but I did a lot of coffee making, So that was kind of supplementing me for a lot of the years where maybe I wasn't making ends meet. But the one thing that I realized for me is that stress is one of the biggest killers of creativity. So for me to struggle with money was going to kill my creativity. So I made sure that I always supplemented it. So when I was full-time, awesome. When I wasn't, let's supplement it so that I can still enjoy the things that I'm doing,
Things have changed a lot, particularly in the last 5 years, let alone 13 years. So we were talking about this off camera before. You and I actually met at a Wiz Khalifa concert, and there would have only been, I think, less than a handful of us in the photography pit back then. But now photography and video production and content creation obviously is a lot more popular, and there's every Tom, Dick and Harry, is wanting to get into the industry, which is great. But where did you look for inspiration, or did you have a mentor back then? How did you go about getting advice or help?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I never had a mentor back then. I think that for me, I really took my inspiration from other artists in their fields and doing what they're doing. A lot of them were locals, like my friends in that group, the outside in group, inspired me the most. So like even when there was things where I was like, I want to get this done and that done, they were like killing it. So I was like, they were my biggest inspiration for so many years, So I would always kind of look up to them and be like, if they're hustling to get this done, then I can do the same, I mean, artists and photographers that were doing well, there was a few, you would know, because we've been around, old heads. There's a few in the industry that we kind of went alongside. They were always coming out with something new, and then we'd all kind of put our own spin on it, And I think it was really good. There's a really good culture in, I think, Melbourne, specifically in the creative scene. And I think other content creators like yourself, and like TMC, and guys like and Michelle Hunter, and the Satadi brothers, and all these guys that were doing really cool stuff. Henok, do you remember Henok? And Milan, those boys were killing it. Like these are all the guys that I kind of, when I came into the industry, they were all the guys doing it, And I think all you boys and Michelle really inspired me in that time, I'd say.
And one thing I'd be curious to get your thoughts on is, how have you seen the industry change over those years? Yeah,
I would say that the invention of social media and becoming such a creative platform has really helped the industry in the sense of bringing content to the world. Back then you would do your stuff and you'd show your Facebook friends and you would show clients, and that was kind of it. And YouTube, but I think now with the content boom, it's definitely changed, which means that now clients need more content, which means there's more jobs for us, which means if there's more jobs, there's more supply and demand, which means there's more people coming out and going, all right, I want to do that as well. So a lot of people that might have given up after a few months now finding their feet. So I think that's why there's a lot more of us,
Because the thing that I guess, like from my point of view, that has changed so much is 13 years ago, 10 years ago, we would only ever post photos of our work. But now there's the expectation of being in front of the camera, doing a podcast, YouTube show. I never would have imagined in a million years I'd be doing something like this. And, for guys like you and I, it's still not supernatural to be on camera because, we come from, I guess, like an era where it was all about, just showing your work and letting your work do the talking. But now you've got to have a personal brand and storytelling and show the behind the scenes. How do you, what's your relationship like with social media? Do you actually enjoy the process? Is it frustrating? What's your relationship with it?
I think there's a very fine line between oversharing, undersharing, and even just like, building your brand. I think in the day and age where everyone is demanding so much content, it can actually steer you off course if all you're trying to do is create content. There's a lot of people that maybe feel the need to perform online and produce a lot more online that maybe isn't helping their brand or their journey, But I also know that it's also super important to do that. I think you do it perfectly. I've definitely said to you, I'm like, man, I'm doing a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm probably at the peak of my career until next year where I'm at the peak again. I'll keep being at the peak. But it's like, but I would say that I've taken a step back from social media personally, just because I like to separate my personal life from my online life. But some people can integrate it well, and I think doing that is a powerful tool. As long as you don't lose yourself in the process. And I know a lot of creatives who maybe get into photography because they love it, feel the pressure of performing online and it actually hinders them, or they do their best work and they get 20 likes and they're just like, dude, put my heart and soul into that. But then they feel like that's their value. But it's not. It just means that the algorithm didn't show enough people that day. That's all it is. So I think it's such a powerful tool, but it can work against you if you don't really look at it for the way that it is.
Are you someone that tries to keep up with trends? You get on TikTok or Instagram and you look at what reels are working or what posts are working. Are you someone that looks into that side of things?
I think I've actively tried to avoid that. And that's just for me personally. I would say that if I tried to keep up with trends at some point, I'm not going to be able to keep up with trends. And if I build my brand around trends, then my brand will die off when I stop keeping up with trends. Whereas if I build my own brand around what I'm good at and what I'm passionate about and what I do, then I'll continually be moving forward because it's like, this is what I do. This is who I am here, not the trend that's coming up. Just slap the mic, sorry. Boom. Sorry, but I'm trying to keep up with myself more than trends. But I think it's important to see what people are liking. I think it's, as a marketing tool, if you do want to get things out there, you can twist what you're into and what you're good at into a trend. I think that's great, but not making it the core of what you're putting online.
Well said, man. This is a thing that would be good to touch on too. You've also worked a lot in nightclubs, and that I feel is a great tool for marketing and getting to know what people gravitate towards. Has that helped the way that you create content or market yourself in that aspect? I
would say 100%. I think for me, remembering that nightclubs are a space where you're basically talking to, as a photographer specifically, you're talking to about 700 people a night, and they're usually on different levels of intoxication. You're dealing with different people at different places, and if you can be interpersonal with them, with that many people in one day, and be able to communicate, then you should be able to do that in business, in the real world, things like that. And networking, it's crazy because some of the best networking I've ever done is in a nightclub. Like, for example, without jumping straight to it, like I got my Kobe Bryant gig from a guy that was running security, and he's like, I'm working with a touring group now. And I was like, sweet. He's like, I'll link you up. And then out of nowhere, I was with Kobe Bryant. It's all these little moments with people and individuals that they all kind of just snowball on, And I think the main thing for me is being personable and kind to everybody you can find. You just don't know what that's going to mean. Not saying you're going to do it to get something out of it, but you are your brand, And if you're a good person and you work hard and you show that to people that maybe you're not going to get something out of today, in 6 months' time, a year's time, 10 years' time, you don't know where that's going to be, Now,
I love that you've brought this up because I think this is one area that I definitely try and educate people on. Is a lot of people get focused on the camera gear and taking like a really good photo, whereas my opinion now is it's not actually that hard to take a great image anymore. But it's all about the package that you offer a client, and that a lot of it has to do with personality. and communication skills. And you're probably someone that I would put at the very top of the industry who has incredible communication skills. I've seen you at a lot of, these high profile, events and tours that we've worked on together. And I'm just like, there is literally no one else that could have done this except for you. So have you always been, I would describe you as, extremely confident and charismatic and easy to get along with. Have you always been that way, or have you had to force yourself somewhat to become more like this because of these jobs?
I was always pretty loud, I think, as a kid. But I was always very personable. And I think going back to the things that I'm passionate about, one of them is people, right? So when you're passionate about people, you love to talk to them, get to know them, things like that, which is, fitting because that's the career I fell into. Like, I worked with scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I worked with Kobe. I worked with Shaq. I worked with musicians. Got along with all these guys really well. But it's because you need to be able to relate to people. And I think that's because I really enjoy getting to know a person where they're at, and kind of working with them. And then when you kind of understand that mentality of just kind of knowing where people are at, what they want, ultimately we're dancing with each other, right? Personality wise, we're all doing the dance, kind of seeing where they're at and moving with them, then you'll be successful. Like tours, you have to really be able to do that dance with people. It's like, where's the line here? What do you actually want? What do clients want? Making sure that clients are happy too. That's their experience. Making sure everybody's happy, So it's not saying being a people pleaser, but it's like making sure that, problem solving and getting to know people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Well, because a common trait for a lot of photographers, videographers is that we're introverts.
Yeah.
So for someone watching this who's like, it's easy for him to say this. He's confident. He's worked with all these big people. What's a piece of advice or a tip that you could give someone that, is a little shy and not so confident, and, they're finding themselves at a shoot and being a little awkward or not knowing how to communicate with people? What's something that you'd suggest that they do?
I mean, there's a few things that you can do. I know that when there's photo shoots that I'm doing that might be a bit awkward. Like I still do shoots now, like in the studio, whatever, and people are feeling weird, and you go, all right, I got to bridge this gap here. Just ask people how their day's going. Just start small little things, and they end up rolling on. Sometimes we get in our heads so much, especially at a shoot. We're like, if I say this, they're going to think I'm this and that, and what if they don't like this, and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, ask how their day is and let the conversation roll. And while you're still doing what you're doing, and you'll notice that it'll kind of ease the tension. I think most people, once the tension's down, communicate pretty well with each other. Anyone can talk to anybody, I think just starting small, putting those little things in there and just kind of seeing how it rolls on,
Love that, man. Great advice. Okay, so we're going to play a little game now. I'm going to show you an image. I've gone to your website and picked out a few things that I really like.
I'm nervous.
And speaking of starting small, this is the first shot I'm going to show you, and I want you to break down the photo and what was going on at this very moment.
Okay. Oh, big Shaq. So that was at a nightclub where Shaq was doing DJ Diesel, we call him here. It's his alter ego, He was doing a big set. This is the thing, right? This is why that was a great photo, because when I said you talk to people what they, and meet them at their level, Shaq will hear about basketball 24 hours a day. Do not go and talk to Shaq about basketball. He does not want to talk about basketball, dude. So what does he actually like? He loves DJing. He loves music. So you're having a conversation about with what he's doing in music and things like that. And that's what built that good relationship there. It's like, hey man, like, what are you listening to? And he's like, oh, here we go, because he's actually passionate about that, we want to talk to people about what we like, which is great, but to have a good conversation, ask him what they like, that's what he likes. So that's great, because he looks so excited in that photo, he's doing the gun fingers. I don't know what was happening in that moment. A lot of bass, I'm sure. You know what I mean? But he's in his element, You see him talk about basketball, that's a great thing for him. He loves basketball, right? But you talk about music and stuff with him, that's where he's at, and that's what he's passionate about now. He's going on music tours, So, that's him in his element, And I love that I got to capture that.
All right, now I'm going to show you another photo. We're going to do a few of these throughout the interview.
Yeah.
But I was on your website once again last night. Man, you got some crazy shots on there, by the way. It was hard to pick out just like a couple. But I'm really curious, because I don't know the story behind this. I'd be really curious to know the story behind this image here.
Cool. Oh, dude, that's a sick photo. So, okay. So I was shooting the after party for, I think, Listen Out. And he was one of the main acts.
So it's ASAP Rocky.
That's ASAP Rocky, by the way, guys.
In case you aren't
In case you don't know who ASAP is.
is.
And the whole night I was kind of floating around, getting some photos, having, but obviously these guys, they want their space. They're chilling, doing whatever they want to do. And I was just kind of making myself known. I'm like, being respectful. Take some photos? Yeah, sweet. They get it. Blah, blah. And then by the end of the night, I was like, hey, man, before we go, I really want to get a good portrait of you. And he's like, yeah, cool. Anyway, with my job, I do more than photography. I kind of help with security and event organizing and things like that.
Give a little flex, man. A little flex.
No, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. So I was like, all right, like we'll walk get this guy to his car. So I'm kind of just like helping the guys that are running the after party, get him down to the car, go down to the stairs, get to the car. And I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't get to ask him. And he gets in the car and they start driving and then he stops. And he leans out the window and was like, that guy needs a photo. He said we were going to do photos. And I was like, best dude. And I was like, because a lot of artists don't do that. They're just like, get me out of here now, Gets over, he's like, all right, he's doing these poses. I think there was like 6 photos that we took because I shot it on film. I did 2 film photos.
That's on film.
That one's digital, but I've got some film photos that came out really nice as well. But I wanted to get them to them quickly. So I sent him these photos the next day. Because film takes days, right?
Yeah.
So I quickly edited these photos up for him, sent it across. They loved it, and then it went viral.
So he shared it.
He never shared it. It got to one of his friends who shared it. Blah blah. His team never opened it, but one of his friends got it, and it went everywhere. T-shirts were getting made within 2 weeks, and I was like, "What's going on, dude?" But it was just like the most random moment because he could have just left. And it just shows this is the thing about people. It's like a lot of these guys have got really good characters, But as long as you give them their space, or like you kind of respect their boundaries, they'll give back in return as well. So
man,
I was
that's
so excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this is what I love about photography. There's so many stories behind the images, you know, and this is why it's so cool. Like that's why I was like, I'm going to show you some of your photos. I'll be so curious to hear the stories. So when was this in your journey? Like how many years in? Was this quite early? Was this 7, 8 years in?
So I would say I was doing mostly hip hop for about 10 years, I would say, and dabbling in sports and the intellectuals and again like science and political space, whatever. But this was probably closer to the end, maybe the 7-year mark, and it was funny because it kind of like it transitioned me out of that because I think by the end of that I was like, okay, I want to start focusing on some other things, and it left a good taste in my mouth with that industry. Let's put it that way. Because, again, you're dealing with people. So you don't always deal with people at their best. But that moment made me really go, this has been a lot of fun,
Okay, so you've done a lot of work in the hip-hop scene. I mean, this is where you and I are very similar. We love our hip-hop. We love our sports. How did you make the crossover to sports? Have you got a background yourself as an elite athlete, or do you train a lot?
I don't know if you've noticed.
I'm trying to hype you up here, man.
Heavyweight champion. No, look, I did box for a while. I played sports a lot when I was younger, I would say, and then dabbled out of it for a bit and stayed in the gym here and there. But I never really did sports, but I enjoyed watching sports. And I think my biggest passion was more combat sports like UFC, boxing. I did box for like maybe 6 or 7 years, but nothing too crazy that's gonna blow anyone's socks off. But yeah, I think I did have a real passion for that. Like I'd say more combat sport, and I think towards the end of my music stuff, and that's the thing. It's like, and I don't say this in a negative way, but it's like never overstay your welcome, even with yourself. Once you feel like it's time to transition out of a period of your life, you should definitely listen to yourself and do it. And I had a bit of an identity crisis towards the end of my hip hop career because I was like, my shooting hip hop career, shooting hip hop because I was like, I really love hip hop, but I'm not as driven towards this industry anymore like I used to be. So I think that there came a time where kind of I put it out there, put the feelers out there, and I did start working with a touring group here who was doing some sports people. Like we did Kobe, and I was like, that was sick, and did some stuff with the boxing, and then like I think who was it? We did Khabib. Yeah, who was a champ. And then after I kind of did that, I was like, oh, this is the excitement I used to get when I was like with Ice Cube or hanging out with Snoop and all these guys, just to drop some names in the
Maybe you've heard of them. Get on.
I don't know if you've heard of those guys.
Yeah.
But like this is the excitement I used to get working with these guys I think this is where I need to be now, you know. And it wasn't like a day or a month that I can remember. I just remember kind of going, this is where I want to be, you know. And I think for any creative, it's important to explore, you know, and not knowing where it's going to take you, but you need to explore always, you know, or else you end up stale, you know.
Well, one thing I'd like to dive into is a lot of people's dream is to, you know, go on tour with hip hop artists or athletes and things like that. And you've done a lot of tours. I thought it'd be interesting to, I guess, like go into a little bit of detail about what tour life is actually really like, because from the outside, it can just seem like private jets, champagne bottles, you know, lots of VIP rooms, and no doubt there's definitely some of those elements in there.
Yeah.
But what is tour life really like? And as an example, you recently worked with Jon Jones and you toured around the country with him. How hectic or non-hectic is tour life really?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think tours are very interesting things. I think that, you know, it's very hard on the body at times. I would say you either come out the end of it losing weight or gaining weight, depending on the tour, you know, like, you know, and it depends on the industry you're in, you know, like the Jon Jones one was great. We spent a lot of quality time together. We had a lot of fun. I ate a lot of burgers because those boys in his team were just like meat burgers. We did a lot of steaks, things like that. But I mean, the main thing was that you're very on at all times, you know, and you've got to be very conscious of you know, of the act, the artist, the fighter, whoever you're working with, of what they want from the tour as well. Because really, you're not just portraying a tour company's tour, you're portraying this person's time in this country. And they'll have that memory forever, you know, like John may never come back to the country, Shaq may never come back to the country. I hope they do. But the content that you create while you're there, the memories you create for them and you give to them, they're going to have that forever. They want to have the best time possible, and you want to do your best to capture that in a way that's respectful to them and is also something that they're going to go, yeah, look, that was the best time, you know. It's hard on the body. I'll be honest with you. You're, as a content person, especially for me, you're waking up early and then you're with them nonstop and you're making sure batteries are charged, memory cards are ready to go, everything's ready to be dumped at the end, your laptop has to be ready, you've got to be carrying everything with you, bang, 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 bang. Shooting as you go. If there's content that they want straight away, you've got to dump it, edit it in the car, give it to them. Crazy. And then at the end of the day, you know, everyone goes to bed and you're like, all right, you dump your memory cards, you get everything charged, you edit what you've got, you go to bed probably 3 hours later than everybody else. And then out of nowhere, bang, you're up again and jumping on a flight. And look, it's a lot of fun. The only way you can do it is if you love it, you know? And you'll do a few of them and you'll be like, I love it. And then you'll get one rogue tour where you're like, I hate it. This has killed my body. I'm tired, you know? And it's good. But then you go, all right, you push through and you do the next one. You're like, this is why I love it. You know what I mean? Like, there was a couple of moments, even in the recent one with John, where I was like, this is why I do what we do. Like, we walked into a gym with John, there's kids screaming, so happy, you know, getting to do training with him, getting to do photos. He came out, was like, that was really meaningful for him. And then he'd never tried kangaroo meat. We cooked him meat. we did all these crazy things, you know, and then it's like, you know, this guy's had the day of his life, these kids have had the day of their life, and you got to capture all that, you know.
It's really cool. Look, I've got to give you some props because I was with you on the Melbourne leg of the Jon Jones tour, and one thing that a lot of people have no concept about is they're just thinking, you know, you're just taking photos or videos of Jon Jones, but you were literally dealing with thousands of fans because there's so many different meetups that you're doing throughout the day. It's not just one meetup, it's multiple meetups. And this is where the communication, people skills kick back in, because not only, you know, like someone like Jon Jones has to be extremely patient and his team has to be patient. You've got to be super patient and willing to, you know, get along with a lot of people. And I think it was like a scorching hot day as well.
Dude.
So
you remember that?
yeah. So there's a lot of factors that are going on in here. I mean, yeah, how do you go about, like, let's just say if you're dealing with someone that is being difficult and, you know, the weather's hot, you've got a short amount of time, Jon Jones is there, you've got potentially, not saying that someone was, but a difficult fan, or they're trying to talk to him for too long. And because, you know, this is something that you're extremely good at. I'd say you're probably one of the very, if not only, people in Melbourne / Australia that can handle this situation. Because I think this is where your nightclub skills also kick back in.
Talking about drunk people. Yeah.
Yeah, because how do you go about handling all of that?
I think the main thing to always remember is this person is come out of their way here, that means this is probably the best day of their life, right? This memory they're going to have is forever. And before they meet this person, I could ruin their day by just saying and doing the wrong thing. And all it means for me is I'm venting my frustration. Hey, don't do this. Hey, you're stepping here. Like it would be easy for me to just act emotionally. But this person here has idolized this person. They love this person. This is the best day of their life. And they're about to meet their idol. And just before they meet their idol, some dude with a terrible haircut told me off for something, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's always good to navigate every situation delicately, no matter who it is, you know? Doesn't matter if it's a child, an adult, whatever. You got to navigate it delicately, like you're handling a gift for them. You know, this is a gift for them to meet this person. It might not end up the way that they want it. They might have wanted 10-minute meet and greet, hang out, have a coffee, do a shot, whatever they want to do, right? And it might not be what they want, but they'll still get something great out of it. So I make sure that they get that moment. I just got to remember, like, for me, this is a single moment of frustration. For them, this is one of the great moments of their life. I need to be delicate with that, you know? Getting them through there, making sure the photo's good. If they blink, make sure they get a second photo, even if it adds an extra 10 seconds, because that's their moment, no matter what, you know? And I think most acts, you know, whether it be whoever, understand that as well. And you hope that they do, you know? So, and you know, we dealt with a lot of people who were very passionate in the last few tours, and they maybe didn't, you know, they were like, oh, they wanted this and that, and because it's their moment as well, they're nervous, they're excited, they're scared, they're crying, you know. So just be kind, you know.
Well, speaking of big moments, I know that you're personally a Jon Jones fan yourself.
Yeah, good man.
You got to do a collaboration post with him. You created one of the tour videos. I mean, how was that for you? Like, not only are you on tour with a guy that you really admire and you've always looked up to, but then you're doing a collaboration post on Instagram to his 9 million plus fans. Is that a big deal for you, or is it just kind of like, oh, whatever?
It's definitely a big deal for me. that was great. Well, I mean, that showed a lot more about Jon than myself, I would say. You know, I think getting to know him pretty quickly, he's a very good person, very kind. Anyone that spends actual quality time with Jon gets who he is, and they're just like, he's a great dude, you know? And he gives to people the time and energy and focus that you wouldn't expect to get from somebody. He asks questions about your life. He says, what are you into? Things that's like, oh, like a lot of people that, you know, with these big acts, they're just happy to stand behind security and just do their thing. It's like, so what are you into? You know, oh, he's like, you got kids? Oh, yeah, well, tell me about your life. You know, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. That's the sort of person he is, right? So I think that showed more about him than it did myself. I was taking some photos and stuff for him. So I think we did 3 collaborative posts in the end together. Damn. Yeah, so the first one was the reel, and I knocked it out so quickly. And we'd been joking that day about, oh, there's people in the past, like however long ago, that would say they were going to get me something. It would take them a month, you know? And the moment's gone. And I was like, oh, dude, I'll have you something by the morning, like joking around with him. He's like, done. So I did. I got him a reel by the morning that was perfect. And he's like, sweet. He's like, well, I have to collaborate with you. Like, you killed it. And I was like, thanks, man. And then I gave him his photos from the day. He's like, all right, we'll do another one. And I was like, oh, like he's a good guy, you know? So that's just who Jon is more than anything. But it meant a lot to me because I was like, you don't get that a lot, you know? Yeah. Sometimes you get artists, and you would know this. You'll get artists who you'll do all this work for, and they don't even tag you. You're like, and then you got to post underneath. It's like with a little camera emoji. It's like shot by me. Like it's just like asking for crumbs, you know? Just totally. Yeah.
Well, another thing with Jon Jones is that you've got an Indigenous Australian background. Did you get to talk to him about that side and educate him about who you are and the culture here in Australia?
Well, that's it. So like we had a good conversation about that. I'd say a lot of Americans don't know much about like Aboriginal Australians, you know? So when he came here, we had a few people come up with paintings and stuff to give him. And I was just like, oh, you know, that's my background. My dad's Wiradjuri, New South Wales mob, families from here. And then he's kind of like, oh, all Aboriginals look very different. And I explained a thing called Shades of Deadly, which is obviously there's a few, you know, we have a very mixed culture now due to many reasons. But, you know, my father from that side is this, and this is what we are, and this is our animal totem, and kind of went into that. And he was really interested in that. So he's like, oh, we don't learn anything about that, you know? So where we were in you know, we traveled around, we got to get some kangaroo steak. Like, as I said, he was really into that because he loves hunting, and then spoke about that it's like similar to venison, and then he's like, this is sick, you know? So he just didn't know much about the culture, you know? And I think that you'll find that most Americans, when they come here, they obviously don't learn much about it, but it's very interesting to them because there is parallels to what happened in America, I'd say. So yeah, it was a good experience to kind of share that culture with him. And then he started posting about me being his Indigenous brother, and then all these people from around Australia were like, yeah, like, thank you, bro, you know, because it's good to see like us getting represented in some way to the American people, you know. So.
That's awesome, man. Well done. Okay, well, we're going to get back into the game of showing you a photo and getting your reaction.
Oh dear. Yeah, let's go. They better be good photos. Well, I took them, right? So hopefully they're okay.
Well, this is one that you potentially didn't take, but I want to get your response on this, and I want to know, when is this fight happening?
Dude. That's a big man.
Which one?
That's funny. Yeah, I got to spend some time with Fury. That was really cool. Yeah, he's a very nice guy. We had a couple of beers, not together. Like there was a group dinner that I ended up coming to and taking some photos for these people who had come to have dinner with. He was here for a fight with No Limit as a special guest, and he stuck around to hang out with some people here. So I ended up being there and got a glove signed, which was nice, and talked about beer. And then he was talking about, I was going to do the accent and be like, you know, where's a good place to run? I'm not going to do that. But he was like, where can I run around here? And I was like, oh, and they told him to go to botanicals and stuff. He's an interesting guy. But I mean, that was just a funny moment because there's a bit of a thing in the industry where it's like when you meet a fighter, and even if you're not a fighter, you got to do this. And I'm doing the pose, I think.
Yeah, you definitely are.
That's awkward as. But yeah, no, he's like, good man, you know, good man. I was like, thanks, dude. He probably thinks I'm a pleb. But yeah, great guy, great dude. Probably won't fight him. He's about 1.5 feet taller than me, dude.
Because I know a lot of people could be and are extremely intimidated by, you know, a lot of these athletes and hip hop artists, celebrities. How are you like around these guys most of the time? Like, are there any situations that you walk into and you're like, just sweating and nervous, and how do you handle it most of the time?
Honestly, I think the main thing that I kind of realized very early in my career is you just got to take people off pedestals, and that every morning they wake up the same way you do. They're with their own thoughts. They're dealing with their own things. You know, you kind of just got to pull that away. I mean, I got starstruck sometimes randomly where I'm like, oh man, I got to pull my head in. Like, you know, like.
With who?
With who? That's a good one. I shot for a composer this year named Ludovico Einaudi, who's an Italian composer.
Uh-huh.
He's the most listened to composer of all time. So he's more listened to than Beethoven, Mozart, everyone, right?
Okay.
And he's still here. He's Italian, amazing film photographer as well.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
he's been the core part of my editing journey for like 13 years. I've been listening to him as my editing music for 13 years.
Nice.
And then I got asked to take some film photos in a portrait series of him. And I was talking to him like, hey, man. And I was like, ooh, calm down, bro. Like, he just probably thought I was a weirdo. But we had a bit of a talk about cameras. But he's been the main one recently.
That's interesting, man, because, I mean, you know, we've rattled off a huge list of big-time people. I wasn't expecting you to say that.
No one does, right? That's the thing. It's like, I think because that was left field for me as well. You know, I wasn't expecting to kind of be there and doing that. You know, it was... I don't think I was ready. I was emotionally prepared to shoot that. It was very quick. And it was actually the day before the Jon Jones tour. So So then I went from that to Jon Jones and Tom Brady all in the same month. So it was a really good month for me, but it was just a lot happening that month, you know. So, but yeah, I wasn't really nervous with Fury. I think more than anything, he's very personable. He'll come up and talk to you, and I think that shows. Again, it shows a lot about the people you're with. I think the people you're with really gauge how you kind of interact with them as well.
Well, another big name that you've had the pleasure of shooting is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing I want to let the people know is when you're working with such big names, one factor that a lot of people don't consider is you're under such a tight time frame. Can you give us a bit of an insight into the shoot that you had with Tom Brady when he came here to Australia, and maybe just give us a little bit of a breakdown on like your brief and what you had to do and the time restraint that you're under?
Yeah, wow. So he was here like a whirlwind for like 2.5 days, and we had him here in Brisbane and in Melbourne. So like straight from landing, I think we had like 3 meet and greets that we had to do straight off the bat, as well as his shows, as well as any other engagements that they had. And that was just in Melbourne from when he landed, you know. So the brief for that's pretty loose in the sense of, with events, right? If one thing goes wrong, it pushes everything back or to the side. Things have to move around. So you got to be so malleable. You got to be able to hit the ground running. Like you got to be dressed professionally, but also be ready to run. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to wear comfortable shoes those days. So, I mean, he hit the ground, and then some things happened with like transport and stuff. It pushed everything back by half an hour. So then we're having to go, okay, we need to make up that half an hour somewhere else. So we did the meet and greet photos, and I know that we had like, for the whole day, I think it was like, so we did 2 meet and greets at the event. Then we did 2 VIP meet and greets upstairs in Crown with like footy players, politicians, things like that. And we had to get through all of that in a time span because most management, especially American management, are like, if you're 1 minute over, they either charge you or they pull him out.
Yeah.
So I'm given like hey, you've got half an hour to get all this done. And you look at it, you're like, okay, like I'll do my best. And you were there. Like I don't think I took a breath for about 25 minutes. I was like, everyone through, pulling people through, again, being kind. Hey man, great, bang. Okay, next one, bang. Like you're trying to get people through, manage people coming up from behind, people trying to take photos over your shoulder, you know, people trying to push through and grab him, people trying to hug him, you know, and like obviously there's a few people to help you, but you're the closest person to him. So you're the first one to deal with it. Because security can't be that close. That ruins the photos, ruins the vibe. You're the closest person to Tom, and it's like everything that's happening now, I have to manage that, you know?
Because the thing I found so interesting with Tom Brady, I mean, he is, you know, like a GOAT. He's one of the biggest athletes, you could say, like just of all time in any sport. And what was really funny was, you know, a lot of the, I guess, like Australian big names were starstruck and, you know, they're getting photos with him. And you're there taking photos of all these guys, you know. What's going through your head in those moments? Like, what are you worrying about? What's your focus?
I mean, for me, it's making sure, again, that these guys are getting what they want out of it, you know? Tom's the guy. Like, Tom's the person you're focusing on, but you're making sure that everyone's happy. You know, you've got the CEOs and founders of, like, not founders, but the CEOs of like, footy clubs. You got all these guys. And there was one guy that came, like, a group that came in to get photos and do videos, Volkanovski and his team, and they got their stuff done, and you're making sure that they're getting what they need as well. You're making sure everyone's happy, everything's moving, everyone's in the right place. And I think for me, it's like, I don't have to manage that because I'm a photographer, right? I'm just a photographer. But what makes me good at my job is that I'm helping manage that, because I don't need someone else telling me to send this person in. I'm managing everything. If there's one person managing all those things, it moves way smoother than 3 or 4, you know? So it's one of those things. Like, we did that, and then they went on a flight that night. We jumped on a flight first thing in the morning. We were there. We set up the venue, making sure that the meet and greet area is set up in a way that isn't going to be congested or bottlenecked, making sure that's all done, getting him ready, getting all of his engagements shot, and then making sure he's happy. Because if he's happy, he'll be good for the photos. If people are happy, they'll be happy. If everyone's happy, the touring company's happy. The managers are happy. The managers were great, dude. Like I still have a bit of a chat to some of them here and there, and they're just great people. But they also love professionalism. You can't be managing Tom Brady and not love professionalism, and you got to keep a good balance of personable and professionalism, and then you'll succeed. So,
well, so this is I guess one thing I'd love to touch on is trust, and how important trust is, particularly not only with celebrities but people in general as a photographer. You know, because like going back to what we've covered a bit today, it's not just about being able to take a good photo. I would almost put that as like 40-50% as the final thing. Like, what do you rank, I guess, like in terms of what's important when it comes to being a photographer, particularly working with big names like Tom Brady, Kobe, Shaq, Jon Jones?
I would say, trust is a big part of it. I'd say. I think having a good relationship and getting, again, what they want out of it, and managing where they're at. If they're tired, help them navigate that tiredness. You know, if they don't want a moment shot, they want a moment to themselves. And as a photographer, even I get that. I go out for a walk and I go, this is beautiful, and I'm like, but I want this moment for myself, right? I want this moment for just me. Maybe I shouldn't take a photo. And I've done that so many times. I've actively done it recently, where I'm like, this is just for me. A lot of these guys have the same thing. Maybe they don't want photos of them taken while they're, eating their breakfast. Some people do, There's tours where they'll go out for a restaurant and you're taking photos of them eating ramen and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. But it's like, maybe they're like, bro, I just want to eat,
Yeah.
Or maybe they want that, Like, there's a few guys in the industry that are doing really well at that at the moment, engaging that, and that's why they've got consistent work with these guys. It's like, you got to build in that trust and go, yeah, look, I'm here for the tour. And for me, I could just post 1,000 photos of all these guys right now doing whatever, and I might get views and follows and things like that, and go viral for posting something of like, you know, Tom Brady brushing his teeth. You know what I mean? But really, what's that doing to the relationship, you know? And as a business, if that's what I become, where you can't trust me to be around you, it's not going to work, you know? So there's definitely some guys at the moment, like Noor. Have you seen a guy named Noor's work?
Yeah, with Alex Pereira, right?
Alex Pereira, dude, he's a gun, right? Him, another guy named Phil, these guys are smashing it at the moment in what they're doing for that very reason. You know, they know exactly the level of like, I'm giving you what you want, but I'm also enjoy yourself, you know?
Yeah, because I think I totally get it. I mean, this has happened to me a lot of times without going into the details, but I'll put together a team of people for a commercial or a photo shoot, and there's always one or two people that want to post behind the scenes and content when it shouldn't be going out.
No.
And they can be the coolest person ever, but once they've broken that trust with you, it's just like, I can't get them on another gig because I just can't, you know, jeopardize this like project with the client. And so it's such it's almost like a thing that people don't talk about, but it's like a secret handshake that you've got to understand, isn't it? Like, is it something that you were aware of very early on? Or did someone have to say something to you?
I think for me, I've never liked stepping on anyone's toes. So for me, it's always that, again, I go back to that word, the dance, because I call everything the dance. It's like finding that middle ground where we're both happy and we're both moving in sync together. It's like, you need to gauge that depending on the person. You know, like I did some stuff with, you know, like a good example, like Steve Wozniak. I worked with Steve Wozniak in the past. He did not want anything behind the scenes. He did not even want to have a conversation with me. And I'm okay with that because I'm like, okay, we know our boundary with each other. I'm going to come around with you, get the photos you want. And at the end of it, he was like, I had a great time. Thank you. Shook his hand because I gave him that space he wanted and I didn't get the things that he wanted, you know?
Yeah.
There was that, but I had to gauge that straight away. It's like when you go to somebody's house and it's like their time to go to bed and you want to kick on. You don't want to be that guy that overstays, you know? It's like, but you got to be able to read the room very quickly, you know? That's all it is really, you know? And then respect that. You know, again, I could go viral for posting photos of, you know, all these, not viral, but, you know, like as a photographer, you want recognition. You could get all these things and be the first guy to take a photo of, you know, whatever. But it's like, hey, like, come on, man. You know, like, this isn't going to help you in the long run. And at the end of the day, you're wanting everyone to have a good time. I want these guys to have a good time working with me, you know? I want them to be like, yeah, that was sick. You got me what I wanted and I'm happy.
Well, it's obviously working, man. You're getting all the big jobs.
Hope so. Yeah. This is my biggest right now, you know.
Oh, hey, man. Make sure you like and subscribe while we're on that topic too. Okay, so let's get into the more nerdy camera talk, the stuff that we enjoy talking about, camera gear. So how important is the camera gear for what you do and your line of work?
You know what? I think knowing the shots that you need to get are important. I run with a 24 to 240. Which is a crazy lens.
Yeah. I didn't even know that existed.
That's a lens, bro. Like I'm wide and then I'm in, you know? Like, it's crazy. I run with that for a lot of my shoots now because a lot of the stuff I need is either very candid or to take in the vastness of a room. Like if we're trying to shoot, you know, 10,000 people watching a concert and this guy's on stage doing crazy stuff, 24. 240 right on their face, you know? So I think for me, knowing the sort of shots that you want is important. If I was running around with a 50 mil, I'd get some good portraits, but the rest kind of fall through. So, but I also think that people can overkill with equipment and rely too much on it. So, look, some of my best photos, all my Kobe photos were taken on a 50 mil, right? And a 24 to 105, I think it was. I didn't need crazy stuff. And I took it on a Canon 5D Mark II, which it wasn't the top of the range camera, but it was one of my probably biggest achievements and best shoots. Some of the best content I got because a lot of it comes down to how you shoot it, what you're envisioning, you know, and how you edit it, you know. You can have the best equipment in the world and then still your photos are a bit off, you know, like
100%.
I say that in the nicest way possible, but it's like, you know, you people rely too much now on the equipment, I would say, to be good and not maybe on what they're trying to get across, you know? So it's not super important, but it is important to kind of know what you need, you know?
100%. I mean, that's why I think these conversations are so important because particularly when people are starting, you know, they're midway of their journey as a, you know, photographer, videographer, they're so caught up on the things that I would say only matter like 20, 30% of the time. Like
Yeah.
personality, trust, networking, communication, it's all this stuff that really takes you to the next level. But bringing it back to camera gear. So what like is your go-to setup right now? It's the 24 to 105.
24 to
and
105
what body?
is what I use a lot on. The Canon R5, because it has a great mirrorless for photo and video. Shoot 4K, shoot great photos. It's insane. I do a lot of travel as well. So I'm traveling a lot with a travel group at the moment. I just did Guatemala, Costa Rica, a lot of travel stuff. So it's great for kind of having and being able to shoot both of that. So I think it's important to, again, know what you need. So if you need video, get something that has good video. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to be out there and go, yeah, I do want to dabble a bit. And then it's just like, it's rough, you know? It's like, you know, but at the end of the day, again, don't rely on it too much. I would say, yeah, Canon R5, you know, 24 to 1 to 240. I shoot film. So I've got my film camera, which is a Canon AE1 program. Got the 50mm on it at the moment, but I have a few different, I have a 400mm for this one. Yeah, it's just like, because it's old as well.
You're that
So
creeper like hiding in the tree,
yeah,
just like
just stalking. So this camera is, just to put it in comparison, is about 30 something years old. So they didn't have compact zoom lenses. So the lens is like this long, so you can't hide with it. You're just like, it's like another arm, just like on the end of your camera. But I shoot a little bit with that here and there as well. So
nice. And say when you're doing like these, you know, Tom Brady, Kobe, ASAP Rocky projects, how often do you actually pull out the film? Like, do you even get a chance to pull out the film?
not as often. I think I found with the slower paced tours, like, so what people don't realize is that I did a lot of stuff again. I've mentioned a few times, like in the science, like I did a lot of stuff with Brian Greene, Cornel West, Julian Assange, and all these.
Oh, the dude with the afro, right? Is that him?
No.
Okay, someone completely different.
That's gonna go viral. You know, guys like that. So I've done a lot in that kind of community as well. And there's a few times in that where it's a bit slower. Jane Goodall, I did some film photos for. Jane Goodall was great to shoot for, really kind person. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I did some film photos for, because it's a bit more slow paced. You know, you're kind of dealing with people that they don't really want to be running to 35 meet and greets. You know, they're doing big speaking tours. They'll go to a couple of dinners and that's it. You know, I did some stuff. If I ever do go on, you know, and do film for like hip hop or concerts or tours like that, I'll usually have a point and shoot.
Yeah.
And that point and shoot's really good. Like I did some for Yachty on his tour here, which was really nice. I did some for Tiger, which was really cool. Who else? I think that's it. Oh, and I did some for Carmelo Anthony this year.
Oh, nice.
Because he was like, I'm really into film. And I was like, funny you say that. And I gave him a disposable camera. I'm like, give it back to me at the end of the tour and I'll develop it.
Oh, sick.
And he just took it with him. I was like, well, hope you get those stuff, bro. Because you know, he's probably going to sit in his cupboard for like 10 years, you know. But yeah, so like those sort of tours you can, but it has to be really fast. Bang, bang, bang. You know, I would say I can take that. But for every photo that's good on that, you'll get 30 that are blurry and movements. And, you know, it's not ideal.
But that is like, in my opinion, the beauty of film too, is that you don't know what you know what you're getting to a certain degree, but if it's like blurry or
It's
sharp
imperfect.
but the ones that really hit are like majority of the time your favorite shots. So is film almost, I guess, like playtime, like your hobby photography, so to speak? Because I know that you do a lot of street photography too with film. Is that your way of like unwinding, or do you prefer just when you're not shooting and not working, I don't want to even touch a camera?
Yeah, no, I you know what? That's the best way of putting it. I think I segmented it as my playtime. I guess for me, I realized that digital photography can make it so easy for us to just shoot 100 and hope that one's going to be good. And it untrains you, if anything, because it's like you can be lazy now. You don't have to sit and get the right angle. You don't have to sit and take a time, take a breath, take in a moment and get the photo, because you can just shoot and hope that one of the 100 are good, you know? For me, film is like, you have one chance to get that photo. Really. Well, you have 27 chances depending on the roll of film, you know, but it's quite expensive. So for me, it was like, okay, like let's go. What I used to do was I used to put on some headphones. This is like the start of my film journey. Probably, I bought the camera maybe 10 years ago. Put some headphones. Back then they had the big long wires, you know, so you'd be wrapping around. And then I'd go out and listen to music and I'd just walk. And I started with street photography, and I guess that's where it stayed for me. It was like, there's a plant sitting a certain way. There's an old heritage home that just looks timeless. There's all these things, and you take that photo and you go, when someone sees this photo, they're not going to know when it was taken, right? Because it's an old house, beautiful trees, blah, blah. But not just that, but I had to really take my time take a breath, take the moment in, get my angles right, make sure all my levels are right, because I shoot it all manual, no auto.
Oh, nice.
Shoot everything, and then just go, let's see how we go, you know? And your first 10 rolls, first 10 rolls are probably good, but I'm saying, like, as a professional, you're like, oh, that's a bit low, or that's a bit high, I could have angled that better, blah, blah. But then after a while, you get a good rhythm, and that communicates with your digital photography, with your work. You go, okay, you know, and it makes your editing later better, because you're not taking 1,000 photos now.
Yeah, so true.
You don't need to take so many,
So
because
true.
you're getting that angle straight away, you know?
Yeah.
So they go hand in hand, but they're definitely two separate things.
I mean, speaking of, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You've been in the game 13 years. What's your relationship now with photography and videography? Are you still just as passionate about it, or is it very much like a job?
It's a good question. I think for me, have to separate what it means to me, and it changes every year, every couple of months. You know, like for me at the moment, I've stepped away from shooting the things that I maybe get excited for to just live in those moments now. You know, I used to love shooting cabins and forests and things like that, and I still love those things, but I go out there and I just spend time in it now. You know, it'll probably change next year because I'll get re-excited for it again. But again, it's making sure that you're not overdoing things in what you're doing and getting bored of it, you know? So for me, I always try and find something new. Like I'm shooting a lot of Polaroids at the moment, and I've got a little folder, and I'm like, no one will see this but me, you know, and maybe a couple of my friends, my family, things like that. But that's our Polaroid, but they're very specific photos, you know, and that's just for our family, you know? So that's my little photography joy at the moment. And I'm still shooting film, not as much because it's so expensive.
Oh, it's ridiculous
Dude,
at the moment.
what happened to film?
Yeah.
But like I still love it, but it's like not as much, right? But yeah, it'll change. And I think that it's really good for people in the creative industry to know that it's okay to change. You're going to be obsessed with something one day and then go, I'm not as obsessed today and I'm starting to feel this. And it's okay to kind of dabble, you know? I've had like probably 50 muses in 13 years. And that's why it stayed consistent, you know? Because it's like, you got to learn to have that. And there's one thing you'll be in a relationship with for a long time. Hip hop was mine for 10 years, you know? And I had a strong relationship with that and go, okay, now it's sport. Now it's travel, you know, like that's a really important thing for me, and I need to, you know, do that, you know. So,
I think they say every 7 years you have a dramatic change in your life, like if it's with work, relationships, you know, whatever it may be. So
yeah,
sounds
like
same. Yeah,
same with your passion, and I think it's important that people do that as well. Like you might one day be doing photography and go, now I just want to take photos of textures. Like there was a stage where I was obsessed with textures. No one else loves it the way that maybe I'd love it. Like it's a photo of like the textures of leaves, and I take photos of that and I'd keep it for me. And there's like, I think I got up to my 50,000th film photo recently. And then when you figure out the price of film, you realize
50,000.
Yeah, it's like a house deposit. it's so expensive.
Oh
dude.
my God.
But it's like, it's a tax write-off, so it's fine. But it's like, yeah. But for me, it was like, so many of those, I was like, no one will get it, but I get it. So that's why I did it for me, you know?
Okay, so let's say, hopefully there's a whole bunch of people at home watching this on YouTube. They've got towards the end of the interview. They might be, you know, a few years into their career or just starting out, and they want to hear from the Don himself that's been in the game for 13 years. From all the knowledge that you've gained, what advice would you give someone that wants to pursue photography, videography as a career? What are, I guess, like the one or two or three key elements that you would say, okay, focus on this?
I would say that remember why you love it, because there's going to come days where you're going to feel, there's days where I've wanted to quit so many times, and it's always at the end of those moments and I've persisted through that I go, oh, this is why I'm here. There's always some breakthrough. It doesn't have to be the breakthrough that changes my whole life, but it's like, oh, this has really reinvigorated me. And it's like, remember why you love it and just persist, you know, and stay unique, you know. Again, this goes back to the trends thing. Stay unique. It's like everyone on the internet's doing something. Just, it's good to kind of put up a bit of a wall at times and go, this is what I'm doing and this is why I love it, you know. The excitement that I see from new photographers or people dabbling and they're too scared to say they're taking photos. I'm not a photographer, but I'm, you know, I've heard that a million times. It's like, well, did you take a photo? Yeah. Did you actively want to do this? Then you're a photographer. It's fine, you know. And the amount of people that have come forward with stuff that is unique and a really good way and like fresh eyes on something, and I go, keep doing what you're doing, right? I've seen a million of the same image all over the internet. You're unique. You might not make $1 million, You might, I don't know, but you might not do all these things. But as long as you're enjoying the process, we get one life. And if you want to explore this, explore it, you know? I think that's the main thing. I mean, I could sit here and do a TED talk about how you make money and how you keep your business going and how do you make this, but it's like the main thing for me is like, you can't do any of those things unless you're persistent, you know, and you enjoy what you do, you know? And I think that's the core of everything. And all the other stuff stems right afterwards, you know?
Man, that is the perfect way to finish the show. Bro, I really appreciate all the wisdom and the stories that you shared today. It's been really interesting for me to hear a lot of this stuff too, because obviously you and I are friends, but so often when we actually catch up, it's at a tour or on a project where there's a million things going on. So it's been really nice to, just hear the passion and the excitement that you have. And congratulations on an incredible career. And I think you're only warming up.
Hope so, man. Damn. We've got a big year coming next year, bro. So,
and happy birthday once again.
Thanks, dude. 21, right?
21.
Plus
Looking
15.
good. All right, bro. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man. You're a legend.